There's a benefit to going to sleep and waking up and letting your mind clear out, because generally you can come up with solutions that are far better than anything you can do when your mind is all jumbled up. And such is the case right now. I am. This is a new day for me. I went to bed and woke up, and here I am. So I think I've come up with something I like. First of all, when we stomp on our data here and we don't get all the way through the frame, I just say let's throw it out. I know we're dealing with 5 samples, or now 4 I guess, but we're dealing with 5 samples, but generally when we're profiling we're dealing with several more samples than just 5. I only have it set for 5 right now because it keeps it simple while we're working out these tests, and then I'm going to put bigger numbers in there. So it's okay if we lose a frame. That's not going to break anyone's back for sure. And so when we wrap, I essentially need to throw out the trashy frame like I had there. Right now, the data we'll get is like this. So when I throw out this frame, I want a 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, so on and so forth. So you can see the resulting data like this. The problem is the profiler still dumps this bad frame out, this useless frame. So we are going to have to. Wow, that's a lot of words, isn't it? We need to change that. Okay, but in the meantime, before we do that, we need to adjust our tests. And the place I was struggling with the most was, I think, with this check frames. This check frames function is awesome. It just says, oh, we got 5 frames. I know where to start, and I'm going to rip right through them, and we're good to go. And oh, by the way, if we wrapped, I know to start at a 9 instead of at a 0, and so on and so forth. So I like that. But now I got to add another special case to it, just for if we've wrapped and if we have a partially completed frame. I don't know how I feel about that, but it's a unit test. It's a small function. This thing's getting a little complex, but let's do it, and maybe we'll be smart enough to document as we go along. Okay, so this is what I came up with. Bool exclude last frame. All right, meaning, yeah, okay, this would have been the last frame, but we got to get rid of it. Well, if we're getting rid of this frame, that means we need to jump up when we write our data out, or when the profiler will write its data out, it's going to jump up to here. See, we want to exclude this frame. That's essentially where I'm going. But this test check frames function needs to account for, well, if we're dropping that, that means we're not going to have a 6, 7, 8. Instead, we need to jump up to 9. So that's what we're doing here. Let's first check for wrapped and get the wrap stuff out of the way. And then if exclude last frame, then profile number is the number that, if you remember, it goes 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Well, right now, in this case, it's going to be at 6, thinking there's going to be a 6. So we need to plus equals the number of categories times the number of frames we're skipping, which is 1, so we can just get rid of that. And then that also means we're going to eliminate the number of frames we go through. So num frames minus minus. Look at me using this parameter name like a variable. I don't know. I don't really have a religious opinion on it. I don't feel too bad about it, though. Okay, good. And then the only place we need to set this to true is in the case where we're checking for incomplete frames. So I'm going to default this to false, because everywhere else, yeah, just do your normal thing. Skip this, no big deal. But then down here in write incomplete frames, we want to, when we say check frames, we want to say true and true. But here's another thing to consider. We're only eliminating this frame if we've wrapped. Okay, I know this is complex logic for such a simple case, and maybe it's not worth unit testing for, but I like to be pretty precise and dead on. So if we don't wrap, then we're going to have 5 frames. We're not going to have just 4, and in this case we're not wrapping, and in this case we are wrapping. So we could either pass this fact in, or we could just derive it. I think I'll just derive it in here. Bool wrapped gets num frames greater than or equal to profiler max frame samples. All right, and then oopsie, Control C, paste that in, paste that in. I'm going to bring check frames up to the group of code that it's by. You can see I did that up here. Okay, so now I expect if I comment out this part where we wrap and we write out a partial frame, I expect all the tests to pass. Let's verify that my suspicions are good. Shift F5 to stop the debugger. Control F5. And yep, I'm green. I'm good to go. Let me take this off. Control F5. Oh no, I just sinned. Close it. Don't look at it. I need to make some assumptions. I need to use my engineering brain and think, what's going to fail? What's going to fail? I know this is going to fail. But if I'm good, I'm not just going to be a monkey and look at what failed. I'm going to think ahead and say, well, what should fail? And be sure that I'm on the same page as my code. So what would fail here? What's going to fail in this case? Well, we know the profiler is going to dump this out to the files, so everything should check up all the way to this point. And then at this point, our tests are going to stop checking, right? But then they're also going to check and ensure that we're at the end of the file, which is not true. So I expect to see an end of file failure, and I actually expect to see 2 of them because we do 2 cases of writing out partial frames. So let's try this. Control F5, and we knew this would fail. Let's go see why. Good. I wasn't too sure on that, but look at it. Yeah, that's good. Now, if this was different than what I was expecting, well, then I can go in there and learn something about my code and get to know my system a little more. But you know, that's cool. That is what I expected it to be. So now, let's make the tests pass. Profiler.cpp. Here's the write data function, and really all we got to do in there is not write out this trashy frame. Okay, if there's a partial frame, let's not write out the trashy frame. So remember, we wrote the tests for. We know this part's working; it's good. But it's this part where we just wrote these new tests for. And the trashy frame is going to be the last frame, and we write the last frame out here. So if we have a partial frame, we simply just don't want to call this function. Well, how do we detect if we have a partial frame? I think we did that before, right here. Okay, so I could copy and paste this, but I don't want to because I'm kind of a perfectionist that way. What is this really asking? You know, it's comparing the category index to the non-used categories. I'm going to Control X that, and what kind of function could we put in here? We could say something to the effect of current frame complete. You see, and just by simply adding that function there, the readability goes up. Now you can say, well, you wrote a function, and that's going to incur a call stack frame every time you call it. Well, how many times are we calling it? All right, this isn't a shutdown. You know, who cares? It's once a game run. I'm not too stressed about it. And if I get really stressed about it, I could profile it with my profiler. The profiler is going to profile itself. But I could make it inline, but then inline has its own issues because now I'm sharing data amongst several projects over here. I don't want to get into that. Well, first of all, let's write this function. Let's bool profiler. I can't remember what I called it. I'm going to dump the expression there. Semicolon, return. And what did I call it? Current frame complete. It's a const function. Not going to modify anything. We should actually put this in the header file here in the profiler. It's just another helper, like all the other helper functions, except I don't need this. Like so, and then go back here. IntelliSense doesn't like it, but that's IntelliSense's problem. And then now I could say, well, if the current frame is complete, then let's write out that frame. You know, otherwise, we're just going to skip over that. Now that I've added this, though, this code up here is bugging me. Because num actual frames, if I remember right, I thought when I initially put num actual frames up there, I thought we would use it down here. And maybe we could rework this code to use num actual frames. But right now we're not, so I'm actually thinking we need to reduce the scope of this logic here to Control X, down, here, like so. Control KF. And there we go. So now I can see if you're wrapped, we got some certain logic. If we're not wrapped, then we got some other logic. Oh, and also by adding this current frame complete, it kind of eliminates the need for this comment. So I can get rid of that comment too. So write the headers. If we're wrapped, do some logic. Otherwise, do some other logic. Let's see if this makes the unit test pass. Control F5. Build started. Hopefully it succeeds. Boom! Look at that. Nice and green. Good time to commit. Hold on. Let me go commit. Oh yeah, let's look at profiles.csv. In fact, let's put a breakpoint here right after the incomplete frames, and I actually want to physically see those 4 frames. So F5. Yes. Boom. Yeah, that looks good. That looks good. All right. Well, anyway, I'm going to commit. Hold on for a minute. Let me go commit. Okay, good. I think one other thing I want to do is to, well, 5 frames is nice, but let's put this up to 1,000 and hope that all of our tests still pass. All right, but that's nice. I can tweak this one variable, and if I have done my work correctly, then all the tests should still be green. This should just cascade through all the results, and looks like they are. They took a little longer to run, I noticed, but all my tests are good. So good. I think the profiler, as far as the bare bones basic profiler I wanted, is complete. I'm sure we will add to this later, but for now we can move back to using the profiler to actually measure some stuff in our games.